Gaming on the GPD Pocket can be a lot of fun, but you wouldn't buy this for gaming. You're buying this as a mini laptop, and then the gaming is just an additional benefit that you can do on it. If you wanted a little laptop for gaming, then look at the GPD Win instead, because it has the controller built into it. While with the GPD Pocket, you have to connect up an external controller onto it to play anything, or use the keys, but they're not very good because they're slightly offset. If you want to use something small for gaming, then this is much better because it's much more comfortable, it's actually smaller, so although the screen's not as good, the inside spec is very similar to the GPD Win, and because all the buttons are built in, it means you've got one device that can do everything. But still, if you're getting this anyway as a little laptop, then it's good to be able to connect up things to it. So, Steam games. You're going to be able to play the older Steam games or some of the newer ones on very low settings. Remember, it hasn't got a dedicated graphics card, so you're very limited to what you can do, and often the settings are really, really low to get it to do much. Now, other option is if you've got a good gaming rig, then remember you can stream games from Steam over from your gaming rig onto here, and then you will be able to play the latest games and stuff on it. But here we go, I'm just going to show you a game working, and then I'm going to show you some emulators as well. So I'm going to go to Mortal Kombat Complete Edition, and I've got my fight stick connected up to it. Now remember, if the screen's too small for you, then you can connect it up to your TV and play it on the bigger screen. Now, because of the USB port and Bluetooth, you can connect up most controllers to it. So I'm going to show you the fight stick working for this game and some of the emulator games, and I'm also going to show you an Xbox One controller working wirelessly, because this is the one with Bluetooth built into it. Now this game actually works surprisingly well. Graphics look nice, and all the motion and everything looks pretty smooth on it. So as you can see, the screen looks nice and clear, and it's completely playable. So let me show you some emulator games now. So now we're going to be playing some old games via an emulator. So I'm on RetroArch at the moment. I'm going to be playing some old Sega games. I've got the GPD Pocket set up to the monitor via the HDMI lead, so picture and sound is coming out from the monitor. Obviously you could connect it up to your TV as well, and it doesn't matter about the size. Now I've got my fight stick still connected up via USB, but later on in the video I will be connecting up the Xbox One S controller via Bluetooth. So the old games are going to work absolutely fine, but when it comes to PlayStation Portable onwards, you're going to start to struggle. So GameCube games, you'll get a few of them to work, but you have to mess around with the settings so much, it's a bit of a headache. But with the older games like Sega games, you don't have to do anything. Mega Drive and stuff will obviously work perfectly. With the PlayStation Portable, most of them work well. Some of the later ones like Gran Turismo does struggle a lot, and you have to apply so much frame skipping, it kind of makes it unplayable. But I'll show you a few things working so you get the idea. Right, I'm just going to show you Wonder Boy working to begin with, and as you can hear the sounds coming through the monitor. Let me just lower that down. Right, okay. Right, nice and simple. The old games, remember the gamepads didn't have much buttons to them, so it's just very simple. This game just uses the joystick and 2 buttons. I just get the skateboard and I'll go on to the next game. Here we go. So this was a real popular game when I was young, back in the arcades. Right, okay, so as you can see, obviously something like that is going to work perfectly, but you can still have a lot of fun with these old games. Right, let me show you something else working. Okay, so here we have Metal Slug 3. Again, this works perfectly. This is using main via the retro arch. And again, a lot of these old Neo Geo games are making a comeback because of the Nintendo Switch. And this works perfectly as well, because obviously these games are old now, so the GPD Pocket will handle these no problem at all. Okay, so you get the idea. Again, it's nice, works perfectly, and you can have so much fun with the old arcade games. Right, I'm going to show you some PlayStation Portable games now. So we're using PPSSPP. Now again, loads of good games to choose from here. So if you want to play the old games, you've got Sega Mega Drive, and that will have the old Golden Axe and Altered Beast and stuff like that. We've got Street Fighter here, or let's try Wipeout. I like Wipeout. Let's try this. I've had to drop the frame rate quite a bit on this to get it to play smoothly, because remember, this is a very fast moving game. But even with the frame rate dropped, it still is really playable. So rather than have a higher frame rate and a slower speed, I like to have the speed at full speed, like 100%, and a lower frame rate. Now for this one, I'm going to take it off the fight stick, because it's not going to work well using this as a D-pad. You want analog inputs, because it's not going to, although it does work, it's not going to work well. Because remember, it's not analog, it's just D-pad, so it's just going straight to the right and straight to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unplug that, and I'm going to set up the controller via Bluetooth. Right, and if you have a look now, it's much more playable with this, because now we can do tiny adjustments on the left analog stick. And it's working via Bluetooth, so it's nice that we're not tethered by a cable. Right, let me restart that. For certain menus you have to use a D-pad instead of the analog stick, but then in the games you can use the analog stick. So if you have a look in the top right hand corner, I've got the frame rate up there, and it's 20 out of 60 and 100%. So the speed's at 100%, but we're only getting 20 frames out of the possible 60, so that's why it doesn't look as smooth as it would do if you were playing it on the PlayStation Portable. So it shows you how good the PlayStation Portable was, that it can do 60 frames on a game like this. But it's still more than playable, and what you'll find is on other tracks where there's less kind of information in the background, then it will be even smoother. And if I just show you the game settings that I've got on this, I've had to put the frame skip into 2. If I put the frame skip into 1, which I'll show you now, it's smoother, but the problem is it's the audio. I hate the audio when it crackles up, so I would rather have the audio sound correct with lower frames than have higher frames but then the audio out. So if you listen now, although we're probably getting higher frames and it might look a bit smoother, the speed's gone down, and also the sound, it doesn't sound right. Right, so I'm going to put it back to frame skipping at 2. Now there is other settings you can play around with. The thing is, I don't like to have to spend ages playing around on every single game. Some people are really into emulators and they like mucking about with all the settings to get it absolutely perfect, because there's a huge range of settings that you can change on it. But normally with the PlayStation Portable, what I do is I just go on it and I put the frame skip into 1 or 2, and that normally sorts it out. But obviously you would be able to get it better if you were to spend more time on it. Here we go, so I prefer it much more like this. Right, let me show you another game working. Right, I'm going to show you Outrun. Outrun's a lot of fun. Again, I had to turn frame skipping on, but it still works really well. So as you can see, the audio is working well, and although we're only getting about 1/3 of the frames we should be getting, it's still enough to make the game very playable. Now it's so much nicer to have this playing on the big screen rather than the small handheld. And even with the cable you get with the PlayStation Portable, it doesn't seem to look as good as when you're doing it via the emulator. But what you do get is you get the full frame rate, so it does play much nicer, but visually it seems to look nicer when you're playing it via the emulator. Right, let me show you Gran Turismo. Right, Gran Turismo on the PlayStation Portable is actually a really good game. It just takes a bit of time to get into it to get the good cars. So to begin with, you just have to drive around in a, I can't remember what it is, a Honda Civic or something like that. But then you think that the controls don't feel very good, but then as you get the better cars, as you get more into the game, then it gets better. On this one, I've just purely set this up just for the video, so it's starting from the beginning. So I haven't got any decent cars or anything. I just want to show you what it looks like. Right, so the graphics are quite nice on this game, it's just that the frame rate goes so low that it's hard to play. So if you have a look there, it often drops below 100% depending on what's in the background. And if you can look, it looks jerky. So on the PlayStation Portable, on the proper handheld device, this game is really nice. I really like this game, but unfortunately on the GPD Pocket it struggles too much with this. Again, you could probably play around with the settings to get it a bit better, but it's although it looks okay, you can just tell there's too much frames being skipped there. It's not smooth at all. Right, so can you see there it's like pulsing. So let's change the game settings. At the moment I've got it on frame skipping 2. Let's drop it to 1 and see what happens. Yeah, so although it's smoother now, can you see it's not like pulsing like that anymore? The sound's gone. Now let's wait for the other cars a minute. You can hear the music and stuff doesn't sound right. And also the speed's dropped right the way down to 70%. So, yeah, so although it's smoother, to me it's less playable. So let's change that back. Right, now the speed's gone up to 100%, so the sound's better, but we're back to the pulsing on the screen again. That's it. So emulators are good, but not all emulators. It depends what you're doing. I wouldn't even bother trying GameCube and above, but you will be able to get hacks and stuff to make it work better. But if you just want an easy life and you just want to turn something on and play it straight away without having to spend ages setting it up, then you're going to be limited to what you can do on this. So as you can see, it does struggle with the emulation of the newer games, but when it comes to the older games it works really well. So if you're into the Sega Master System and the Mega Drive, or if you're into like the old Nintendos like the SNES, then all this is going to work absolutely fine on the GPD Pocket. So if you're thinking about getting the GPD Pocket, but you're also tempted with the GPD Win because you like the fact that you can game on the go, then a compromise could be to get the Pocket and get yourself a small gamepad like this 8-bit Do gamepad. Works via Bluetooth, it's got a battery built into it, a rechargeable battery, and it's really, really light. You're not going to be able to do things like PlayStation 4 remote play on it because you haven't got all the buttons and the analog sticks, but for your old games on the emulator, on things like the PlayStation Portable and RetroArch, then it's going to work absolutely fine, and it's small and it's light, so it's not going to take up that much room if you want it to be portable. So this and this together are still relatively small and light to put in a small bag. So of course it's not as portable as this, but if you're using it mainly as a computer, then the keyboard here makes it so much more usable, and also the fact that you've got a much better screen than the GPD Win. So that's something that you're going to have to decide. If you're getting it for gaming, definitely go for the GPD Win, but if you're getting it for just general use with occasional gaming, then I would recommend going for the GPD Pocket and then getting a gamepad, a nice small light portable gamepad to go with it.